gratitude to Anand Louis and his team, and Ramakrishnan of Rupa Publications, my publisher, for having me here. So I think most of you in this room are either millennials or Gen X. I am a boomer and may well be the only one in the room. But rather than feel like a fossil, I feel fortunate because I've actually had hands-on experience with the way computing and information technology has evolved over the last 6 decades. So when I was in school, my father gave me a slide rule. Anyone knows what that is? Good, thank you. Which was essentially an analog computing device, used essentially for multiplication, division, and also for functions like roots, logarithms, trigonometry, but hardly ever for addition and subtraction. And in school those days, in class, we used something called log tables. So nostalgia is in a good place in this room today. And then I don't think I used, much later actually, perhaps even after engineering college, that I used the Casio calculator. And then after my MBA, when I joined Tata Motors, we used to outsource our data processing to TCS. And those days we used punched cards for binary inputs to these large IBM motherboard computers. And the output came out in reams and reams of continuous computer stationery. I was handling spare parts, which meant from thousands of parts for Tata Motor vehicles, you needed output of that kind, inventory and so forth. And this was in the 80s. Then when I became a screenwriter in 1988, I started using the word processor and worked on MS-DOS and floppy disks through the 90s for my screenplays, my MPhil papers, my PhD thesis, and then, of course, spreadsheets and PowerPoint followed later. And then when I started editing my films, I moved to Macintosh for their software, which is called Final Cut Pro. And today we have smartphones in our pocket and the information of the world in our pockets. So it's a far cry from logarithms to algorithms. And recently I did a session for Stanton Chase on how global CHROs leverage AI for succession planning and how mentoring is a critical catalyst in an era where technology is relentlessly reshaping our lives. I've done this basic recap for the simple reason that sometimes revisiting history is essential to understand the true value of your legacy. Rome was not built in a day, nor was digital technology. And it's important to know what your predecessors did for you to find and discover the achievements of today. There's also a saying that those who forget history are condemned to repeat it. And in this context, I'd like to read excerpts from my book. The book is called Mentor Morphosis, Stories for Mentoring the Leader in You. And I understand all of you are going to get copies. At the end of this, if you feel like getting my signature on them and signed copies, that'll be great. Otherwise, so be it. The books will be there for you. This is from a chapter called The Postmodern Frankenstein. How many of you have seen a film called AI by Steven Spielberg? Anyway, this is a quote from that film. It's a character called Henry Stinton in AI who says these lines. This is the beginning of the chapter. Think about this. If he was created to love, then it's reasonable to assume he knows how to hate. And if pushed to those extremes, what is he really capable of? It was 2 centuries ago that Mary Shelley wrote her Gothic novel, Frankenstein, the modern Prometheus, about a scientist named Victor Frankenstein and the monster he created, who eventually became known in folklore by the name of his creator, Frankenstein. On seeing the ugliness of his creation, Frankenstein was filled with disgust by something that was in fact meant to be a beautiful manifestation of a dream to help rid the human race of disease. After being abandoned and denied human love and compassion, the creature went on a horrific, murderous rampage. In the novel, Shelley warns of the dangers of man acquiring the knowledge to become a creator and play God in the laboratory. If humans see machines or artificial intelligence as threats rather than a part of their own creation, they themselves will bring about the very state of alienation that they fear. Of course, there have been AI goof-ups, like bots becoming racist Nazis and software tools stealing money and creating fake images. The consequences can get more serious when biased algorithms are in charge of deciding who should be approved for a bank loan, whom to hire or admit to a university, or whether to kill a suspect in a police chase. But we need to go back to the Frankenstein story to further understand such implications for a mentor-protege relationship. The monster eventually takes refuge in a cottage, where hidden from the eyes of the dwellers, he learns about the elements of social life. Tempted to get rid of his unbearable solitude, he makes the grave error of assuming that the virtues of his heart will win over the family in the cottage. The tragic result is predictable. Horrified by his repugnant experience, they flee, and in irrevocable wrath, the monster turns against the heartless world and becomes vicious. The onerous question that we are left with at the end of the novel is whether things would have turned out differently for the protege had the humans around him, including his own mentor, shown him more empathy and compassion, which are the attributes of emotional intelligence. So the question here is not whether AI is essential, but whether we are losing our grip on EI in the pursuit of AI. AI is essentially the ability to learn. It uses algorithms to process new data and to change how it computes new information according to that data. This has many people comparing it to human intelligence, but the jury is still out there to determine the extent to which AI can replace humans and in what roles. Let me give you a personal example about ChatGPT and its intervention in screenplay writing. I was recently struggling with the climax of a script, and I fed in inputs leading up to that point in the story. But all I got was from ChatGPT was various permutations and combinations of sensible but cliched options picked up from the web and assimilated in a very sophisticated way, but not exciting enough for me to accept. I don't want to sound immodest here, but it wasn't certainly better than the climax I had worked on in the first place. So limitations do exist. AI and EI are complementary. AI cannot infer meaning from learning. That needs human intervention. AI enhances efficiency, provides insights, but struggles to navigate the nuances of human relationships. AI cannot reason for you. EI is essential for understanding the feelings and motivations of employers, employees, customers, and stakeholders. AI cannot replace the attributes of authentic leadership like purpose, passion, values, and behavior. AI cannot engage in moral reasoning. There's a chapter in my book called Relevant Morality. That kind of judgment and decision making on ethics can come only from a human being. And most importantly, AI does not have intuition, something that all great leaders have. You all are experienced high up in the hierarchy, in the decision-making process. You know the role intuition plays, although I have a theory about that too, in terms of it actually being a rational exercise and away from ESP and superstition and what have you. So what are the attributes of EI, emotional intelligence? A very simple and nice representation, and he's the originator of the concept of emotional intelligence. Daniel Goleman. He models, there's a model that outlines 5 constructs of EI. One is self-awareness, your emotions, strengths, limitations, and how these affect others. Self-regulation, managing your emotions and adapting to changing circumstances. Social skills, managing relationships to benefit people in different situations. Empathy, being considerate to other people's feelings by imagining yourself in their position. And motivation, being driven to achieve goals not efficiently but effectively, which means happily. And it is important for all this then to have an EI vision. So whether it's for your organization, your division, your subgroup, it's an interesting exercise if you're really interested in this domain to have an EI vision, which essentially is implementing and sustaining a culture of emotional intelligence, customized to meet the diverse needs of individuals across the organization. And the vision leads us to what the mission should be. And that is creating a continuous learning environment. Earlier when I was doing my MPhil, I discovered the concept of Kaizen, continuous learning. I'm sure the technologists here are aware of that. Creating a continuous learning environment where emotional intelligence principles are integrated into every day. So you start small, but start regularly. Every day work practices and moving from knowledge, this is in essence Gyan, but converting it, albeit in a small way, to something pragmatic is really the key. Moving from knowing to doing and from concepts to lived experiences. Based on this, what could be the EI strategy for mentors? Identify EI-driven skills, including communication and listening skills. The previous speaker mentioned something about leadership and the hierarchy and the communication sort of process in the forces. But clearly, more in the context of someone questioned the parallels between that and the corporate world, the listening skills. It has to be two-way in organizations. So both communication and listening skills are critical, even for a leader. Use learning and development sessions to build these skills. I mean, if you have great interaction and trust with your HR, just slide a little EI programming in their training programs. Simulate sessions that allow demonstration of EI skills. Empathy is at the core of EI. Simulate situations to build empathy among employees, to foster mutual respect and trust and collaboration, and a feeling of oneness with the organization. To elaborate on this slightly, mentoring as a strategy for fostering emotional intelligence. Effective technology mentorship can be structured through various models, each tailored to specific goals. In my book, there are 14 mentor types in my mentormorphosis model. But in the context of this session, there are 3 types that I want to sort of refer to and share. The first is vocational mentors, which all of you are. Vocational mentors use their industry or domain experience to create a positive approach in mentees and leave a lasting impact on their lives. The second is distance mentors, which is based on remote mentor-mentee relationship. This was more prevalent in the COVID and work from home times. Studies indicate that mentors and mentees who work at a distance experience the same level of satisfaction with mentoring as those who meet face to face. Distance mentoring enables the mentee to find the perfect match no matter what the location of the mentor is. And technology has assisted this style of mentoring. And the third interesting one is reverse mentors. The clincher here is that the younger person becomes the mentor and the seasoned senior professional the mentee. Thanks to the phenomenal expansion of social networks, the exchange of ideas is no longer restricted to the purview of hierarchy and age. For example, each successive generation tends to be more open and more knowledgeable about diversity in society than the previous generation. Reverse mentoring is something which perhaps all of you should look at to enhance your own learning and the quality of mutual trust and emotional intelligence in your mentoring relationships. The measure of the level of your EI is your EQ, emotional quotient. A vocational mentor with a high EQ will typically be aware of a mentee's motivations for seeking a mentor and the qualities that would come into play during the mentoring process. Mentoring programs can comprise one-on-one sessions that address individual challenges or have group mentoring that fosters collaborative problem solving. Here are some mentoring objectives. Establish clear goals and expectations for both mentors and mentees. Facilitate transfer of knowledge beyond the technical aspects of the job to nurture empathy, active learning, and resilience. Build mutual trust and have open, candid conversations about failures and vulnerabilities. Tech organizations known for their focus on innovation operate in an environment where the risk of failure is a constant companion. Implement feedback loops designed with empathy and constructive criticism to reinforce the principles of emotional intelligence on a day-to-day basis. Use experiential empathy, a process through which mentors connect with their mentees by sharing their own relevant experiences. The Colonel mentioned very similar things, and he has such a rich and vast experience. Clearly, a lot to be learned. And if this is applied, and really what the questions were in organizational context, is easily adaptable, accept you. Share your stories, make them believe in you. People who are, your subordinates. So today, soft skills are the new hard skills. To my mind, the popular, long-standing view is that education in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, and I think I'm sticking my neck out here, given the audience. I mean, this is the belief that you should be pushed further to build the technologies of future. I'm not taking away from that. But a strong contrary view has emerged that while less sophisticated jobs will be lost to systems of automation, humans will still be required for creative work, critical thinking, social skills, and emotional intelligence. Competencies that machines are incapable of. For all this, the solution lies in a pervasive liberal arts education to enhance social and emotional learning, SEL, and bolster the STEM environment. Awareness is the key dimension that is at the heart of EI. Being aware of one's behavior, strengths and weaknesses, and the impact one has on others, that is self-awareness, and also having empathy for others, managing relationships and building trust, that is social awareness. In my doctoral research on customer-vendor relationships and HR work systems in the automobile industry, I found that strategies based on Toyota's lean manufacturing system, which relied heavily on a high degree of collaboration and trust, resulted in higher productivity. Managing relationships also depends on our ability to mutually adapt to or influence the emotions of another person. And this empathy, in turn, depends on the ability to manage our own emotions. And then moving on, how about flipping the paradigm? So once EI, and it's a long haul, once EI gets ingrained in organizational culture, empathy can play a crucial role in the evolution of human-computer interaction and actually contribute to the design of AI mentoring. Very interestingly, AI can actually be your buddy and your wingman. So benefits of AI mentoring tools, clearly, they can be precise. I mean, AI does that. Those who handle analytics and data processing of that sophisticated nature will realize that the precise mentor-mentee matching is possible. It saves time and resources. You can have data-based insights, 24/7 availability, and it is cost-effective because your investments, if you have the culture of AI, are already in place. And I hope I haven't dragged this too long. There's a moment of relief now. So this formatting, which I dreaded, went a little awry. But let me just read out what the next steps and action points should be if you follow the path that I've taken just now. If you believe in mentoring, get the buy-in of your CEO and CHRO. And trust me, even if one of you makes a dent somewhere, it'll be a leap forward for mankind or womankind. Collaborate with them to create relevant mentorship programs. Mentor the mentors. Create a schedule for the above. If there's no calendar, it won't happen. It's a philosophy. How many of you have gone to EDPs, training programs, off-sites? Excellent feedback, but it's perishable. Once you return back to your organizations, there's never a feedback loop. Never, ever. In my 50 years of experience, 40 years of experience, corporate life, I've screamed my head out, HRs. So the intentions are honorable. But this whole confusion in time management about urgent and important. Clearly this is important, but life takes over when you're doing only urgent stuff. And a schedule is a must. Appoint someone responsible and accountable for these programs, and become the first organization to have a CMO, a Chief Mentoring Officer. Every CHRO says we believe in mentoring. There is not one. I mean, you have CLOs, all kinds of CXO level designations in HR, not even an assistant vice president of mentoring. So yeah, I mean, that's my utopia. Let's see what happens. But right then, forward ho, and let's lead technology with the heart. Thank you very much.
Any questions you may have for Doctor? Yes, we have a question from there.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Yes, please.
Before we learn AI, you have analyzed a lot of things compared with AI to AI. But the question is that whether AI is embedded into the AI.
I beg your pardon? AI is?
Embedded into the AI. Unless and otherwise, because AI replaces the decision makers. So decision makers are not there. So how can AI be analyzing or showing empathy and emotional intelligence is taken care unless it is embedded into AI?
So that's the utopia. And that's also a relief, because AI will never take up the role of human beings. But both have to evolve. Today, if robots are shedding a tear if the input, the data fed, is sentimental in value, then there is a threshold of risk or threshold of progress, is the way you look at it. So it's possible, because, as I said, the evolution of technology from a dull computer to robotics, in motion pictures, the dynamics have changed. I mean, it's everything. The drone technology, they are intelligent beings. AI is intelligent, but it will continue to be artificial till it becomes an equivalent, which again is tending to infinity and utopian, to HI, which is human intelligence, which will never be, is my personal belief. But if it rises up to a level where it can understand a human being's EI, that is doable, and that is the ideal. And clearly I agree, there is no mentoring officer, I mentioned, but clearly in CTOs, Chief Technology Officers, and the most answers that I get in my sessions is, we know what we are doing. It's inevitable. We've come so far, nothing will go wrong. And then they move on. It's also, I mean, it's a natural order that EI cannot fully be embedded into AI if human beings are taking a decision. It's a survival issue. So I guess it's a journey. We've come thus far. We don't know where we are going. Apocalypse might happen much before we attain any sort of significant. We're in the 4th industrial revolution. I don't know what the 5th industrial revolution is going to be. True. It's a hypothesis, and I have no answers.
So recently I was going through an article wherein the inventor of AI is repenting on, so why I have invented this. And he is going to tell people that don't use AI.
Correct. So that's what I said, the postmodern Frankenstein. It's a 200-year-old story. We have created that. But if it is treated with empathy and compassion, then Frankenstein might not feel the ugliness and rebel against a human. Precisely my point. So he's Frankenstein. I mean, that's clearly, I rest my case purely on that comment of yours. Yes, sir. Thank you, ma'am, sir.
Any further questions? I think you're
I'm like the army, unquestionable.
pretty much, from what I can see.
Very good. Proud of myself. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.